Let's go, guys. Welcome back to the Triple Double Watch. We are back to recap Game 5 of the NBA Finals. And the Warriors won 104-94 in a thrilling game. And before we hop into the episode, I want to remind you guys, if you're watching on YouTube, to leave a like and subscribe. We are at 41 or 2 subscribers at the time of recording. We're trying to hit to 50 this week and 100 here soon in a month or so. So hit that subscribe. We appreciate your guys' support. And let's talk about the box score a little bit.
Yeah, we'll start out with the Warriors. It was a big night from Andrew Wiggins. We'll talk about that. Big night from the supporting cast as well. Peyton and Poole both had 14 and 15 off the bench. Steph had a rough night shooting. His first game in over 200 games, not hitting a three. And then Draymond figured it out tonight. Had 8 and 6, and and Otto Porter had 2 points in 15 minutes. So and then Bjelica and Iguodala also had a few minutes. But definitely a big night for Wiggins, and then Peyton and Poole off the bench with big nights. So, and the Celtics, it was a weird night for a lot of these guys. Tatum had a pretty solid night, 27 and 10. Brown had 18 and 9 on 5 of 18 and 0 of 5 from 3, so that's not great. Smart had a good offensive night, 20 points, but didn't do much of anything else. 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Horford had 9 and 9. Williams 10 and 8. White missed every field goal attempt in 21 minutes off the bench, and Williams had 3 points off the bench, and Pritchard was 0 of 3 in 5 minutes. So not pretty much nothing from your bench for the Celtics, so not great.
Yeah, a few things that jump out from. Well, first off, a lot of times you could look at a box score and kind of tell the makeup of a game. This one feels kind of different. Tatum shooting wise, that may be his best percentage shooting for the series.
I think most definitely.
But it didn't feel like his best game. And going on down the line, like Jaylen Brown struggled. Marcus Smart looks good in the box score. Didn't feel great overall. His defense wasn't great tonight, honestly, for a defensive player of the year.
With Smart, it doesn't show up in the box score, that stuff, but you definitely want to see more than 2 and 3 in your assists and rebounds. So.
And then Derek White, interesting enough, so he played 21 minutes, but I think 17 of the 21 were in the first half. So they were really riding him in the first half. Less Robert Williams, less Grant Williams, stuff like that. They only played 4 or 5 minutes in the second half because he was ice cold, not getting.
Well, it was a little bit of that, and it was also a little bit of Tatum and Brown played the entirety of the second half. So.
Yep. But as far as the Warriors, like you said, I mean, Gary Payton, 26 minutes tonight.
Yeah.
Huge increase in minutes, and he performed in all 26 of them. He was huge tonight. Jordan Poole only played 14 minutes, which is weird, but makes sense considering how much you're playing Curry and Clay. But the 14 minutes he was in, he was solid and helped them tremendously tonight.
Yeah, and then it was interesting whenever Looney got into foul trouble early, they threw Iguodala out there kind of as like a 4. So that was pretty interesting to see as well.
And maybe the biggest contributor of the first half for the Warriors was Draymond Green, especially in the first quarter. He came out with a lot of energy tonight, and it's what they needed to start Game 5 back in Chase Center. He was scoring. He was making some good passes, great defense. And what surprised you the most or stood out to you the most from Draymond?
Well, I would say it's like we've mentioned in our preview. He was an X factor. You needed his energy, and like you've mentioned, you wanted him to come out and just have a couple buckets in the first and just have the crowd pumped, and that's exactly what he did tonight. He even did one of what you wanted, the little fake handoff drive, got an easy dunk off of it, so that was good to see. He was scoring a little bit, but it was also good to see his hustle and energy overall, like we've been wanting to see. A couple loose balls, he was down there on the floor, and I think you mentioned the refs actually calling a foul on one of those hustle plays where he got jumped on, and it was a little shocking.
Shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Draymond kind of got pushed over, fell over, whatever. Is on the ground and protecting the ball, bringing it to side, and Jaylen Brown finally just dove on him, and there was a lot of body contact. I think it was the right call, actually. But Mike Breen mentioned it on the podcast. Or not the word of the podcast. Mike Breen mentioned it on the call that you don't see that often. They let anything go on the floor, but they did not this time. They called a foul on Jaylen Brown, and I'm glad to see it finally. So
Yeah, it's rare to see it, but I think it was the right call in the moment.
yeah. So to further along, Warriors dominated the first quarter pretty much. I think led by 11 or so after the first. Celtics started off really rough from three. I think it was like 0 of 12 or 13 or something.
0 of 12.
And finally got it going. Tatum and Smart both hit some threes halfway through the second. And Smart had a really good second quarter himself. What did you think of that?
Yeah, it was also good to see him, hit some shots. If he's hitting shots, they're usually looking pretty solid. And after that start, it didn't look like they were going to be in this game at all. But then, Smart and Tatum and company started hitting those shots. And I think they made it was 5 or 6 in a row at one point.
After going 0 of 12, they made, I think, 6 in a row.
So it was good to see that for the Celtics in the second quarter and into the third, but need to sustain it for 4 if you want to win games close like that.
Yeah, so as good as that second quarter was for the Celtics shooting the ball, they didn't gain much ground. I think Warriors went into halftime up 10 or so. Again, not completely sure. I don't have it beside me. But Celtics then came out super strong in the third and made their hot shooting in the second even hotter by starting 5 for 5 from 3. Tatum with a few, Horford with 1, Smart with 1, 2. They became the new third quarter Warriors tonight.
Kind of reverse roles. It was third quarter Warriors turned into third quarter Celtics tonight, and fourth quarter Celtics turned into fourth quarter Warriors tonight. But on those threes, it was good to see a lot of ball movement. They were driving, kicking out for threes, just good ball movement by the Celtics during those threes.
Yeah, I think there was only one Tatum isolation 3. All the others were drive and kick, a lot of ball movement. It was good to see, and it's what they needed to get back in the game early in the third for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Celtics had a lot of ball movement in the third quarter, but it was sprinkled in with a lot of Tatum isolation. And his isolation looked a lot better than previous games in that third quarter. And he looked a lot better when he got Wiggins off of him. It's still been the case all series. But still had a bucket or 2 on Wiggins in that third quarter. Making the right play, decisive plays out of pick and rolls and trap coverages. Really gave him a spark. What did you think of him in the third?
Well, I feel like all that run they made to begin the third quarter just felt like it was just turning the game back. They were down double digits for a lot of the first half, and then he started hitting these shots, and it's like, is he gonna show out? And he did for that third quarter, but it's just like the entire second half, it just felt like nothing the Celtics did in the third they could figure out in the fourth at all.
Yeah, and it was that huge run to start the third and into the third. It felt like the game 1 run that the Celtics had at the end of the fourth. And if they had pulled that off at the end of the fourth again, they probably win that game tonight. And that doesn't mean, obviously you make your run there and whatnot. But it's been a huge thing in general. People talk about when you put in all that effort to make that run, it's hard to keep up that energy then the 5-6 minutes after you tie the game up or you're up by 2 or 3 then, because you've exerted a lot of energy at that point and it's hard to keep that high going. But
I will say what helped the Warriors stop that run was Wiggins. Like they finally he got on Tatum, and tonight was both ends. Wiggins was just insane. This is going to sound crazy after Game 4, but I still think Wiggins has a shot at that Finals MVP.
I had that in my notes too. I think he does too now, actually. He would have to have an insane Game 6 performance still.
Which isn't going to happen because Clay, we already know.
Exactly. So, I mean, Steph was just in a world of his own in the first 4 games, and he ended up going 0 for 9 from 3 tonight. But his impact was still there. He had 8 assists. He was drawing the defense. He was playing good defense tonight, too. The Celtics' defense changed a lot tonight, too. They were committed to him not getting a wide-open three-pointer. And that sounds like, oh, yeah, you should never give him a wide-open three-pointer. But, like, sometimes coming off of the off-ball screens, they're, like, leaving Smart on an island to get over. No, they were trapping it every time tonight, pretty much. And so Curry ended up hoisting up 9 shots, but it wasn't 9 open shots. It was about 7 contested, 1 semi-contested, 1 open. So the defensive change on Curry was huge. They were going to make the role players step up, and they all did.
Yeah, just from the jump, the Celtics came out immediately face guarding Steph, not letting him get any space, and it showed up at the end. First game, 223, I believe, not hitting a 3, and you would have thought in a game that Steph Curry doesn't hit a 3 that you're at least gonna win by a few points, maybe even blow them out. So it definitely stings for the Celtics to lose out on a game like that.
Yeah, that's a huge confidence booster for the entire Warriors roster, knowing that you can have an off night from Curry and still kind of be in control of the game the whole time. I mean, like we said, the third quarter got iffy there for a bit, but they were the better team 3 out of 4 quarters for sure. And Wiggins' versatility in this series and this playoffs alone has just been off the charts. I mean, he's sometimes taking a side roll on offense, spotting up in the corner, but he's hitting those shots in the corner. He's other times getting some isolation touches when Curry is out, and he's doing the most out of those. And then on defense, in this playoffs, he's guarding Tatum. In last series, he guarded Luka. And the series before that, he guarded, probably Desmond Bain. Sometimes Ja. He guarded Ja a lot when he was healthy. I mean, you're guarding Ja to Jason Tatum. I mean, it's just very impressive out of Wiggins. He's been a true two-way player in this playoffs. And it's a good story for him, for sure. And I think it's become evident at this point that the Warriors have won the Wiggins trade. I mean, at the time, there's a lot of controversy both ways on who won the trade. The Warriors got 2 first-round picks in that trade, too, that has turned into Jonathan Kuminga, and I don't know the other pick or if it's even been used. But regardless, you got Jonathan Kuminga now, who's looks like a good young player, and maybe D'Lo is better on certain schemes and teams, but Wiggins on this team is perfect for them. I mean, it's just he could not be a better fit.
Yeah, he fits in perfectly. He's like you mentioned, he's that guy that can guard 1 through 5 pretty much. He can go out there and he can score at will. He can stop anybody. He's just the perfect fit with the Splash Bros and all these other guys that have been around for years, and even the young guys like Poole and all them.
And speaking of Jordan Poole, he had a huge shot, a huge momentum-changing shot. Celtics are up 2, dribbling out the clock late in the third, and miss a shot. Warriors get the rebound with about 4 seconds to go. And Wiggins took forever to pass the ball. I mean, we're hyping up Wiggins, but he took forever to pass the ball here. He could have passed it to Jordan Poole at any point. Calculated, yeah, I guess. Jordan Poole catches it with about 0.5, goes straight into his motion, and they show the picture. And he's got it off of his fingertips with 0.1 on the clock, literally. And he banks it in then.
The definition of split second.
Exactly. Banks it in, and they go from down 2 to up 1. And that, I've had that happen games I've played in, and that is draining going into the huddle after a quarter or a half or whatever. That is draining.
Yeah, it's just like zaps your energy completely.
It really does. It really does.
It makes the crowd go nuts. It gets them back in it. and they were never out of it, but they were going crazy after that shot. It just kills you.
Because you go to the huddle feeling like you're handicapped almost now, because you're like, oh, that shouldn't have went in. Like, that's a bunch of BS. So you're like, dang, we got to work for those 3 points back, and they just had to bank it in.
Yeah.
So, good shot by Jordan Poole. And it did seem to rattle the Celtics a bit early in the fourth. Had some timely turnovers that led to easy buckets. So what was your take on that?
It was not great to see. I don't remember the stat, but there was something about the 16 turnover mark for the Celtics and their success when they are under that. And I think they had 18 tonight, I believe. But
something like that, yeah.
Just can't happen, and their turnovers have not been good turnovers either. They get caught up and doing too much. And Tatum didn't do that as bad today, but it's been primarily him in previous games where he just tries to do too much. But they kill themselves every single game, it feels like, with turnovers, and obviously they're in a hole now because of it.
Yeah, so for reference, Tatum had 4 turnovers, Jaylen Brown had 5, Marcus Smart had 4. Looking at it too, Robert Williams had an 11 plus 11. All the other starters were negative, so that's kind of interesting too. But that's a lot of turnovers for your big three. That's a combined 13.
Yeah.
And like we said, it's a lot of driving turnovers that bad kickouts, bad dump-off passes, and it's fast breaks the other way. It wasn't thrown out of bounds. It wasn't aggressive 3-on-2 fast breaks of their own turnovers. And that's a backbreaker too going to start the fourth quarter for sure. So a big storyline of tonight though might be the refs. It was sketchy at times. For the game, the Celtics probably got the wrong end of it, but there was a lot of weird calls both ways. The Celtics just seemed visibly frustrated early, and too early that it affected them in an NBA Finals Game 5 game. To an extent, you understand it, but you got to play through it, at the start at least. Big guy, the star of the Celtics, so it is going to be the big guy, was Tatum and the refs. He wanted a lot of calls tonight and didn't get some he probably deserved. I don't know. What did you think about it?
I do think that the whole series, and it feels like over the whole year, that the refs have been so inconsistent with their calls. So you can understand to some extent, but in a game like this, you got to look past that. If you're a guy like Tatum, you got to just go get your buckets. You don't need foul calls to get buckets, but that's what he's been looking for all series. He's been looking for those foul calls, and he hasn't gotten them. So you can't expect it at this point. If you haven't gotten them, games 1 through 4, what's Game 5 going to change? But
exactly.
But I do understand it. I can agree tonight was not very good for the refs. It just felt like they were off, and I don't know. It's specifically the Smart thing and all that was just off.
Yeah, so we could talk about the Smart thing real quick. Then I want to mention something on Tatum, but Smart had one play where Clay kind of pushed off, kind of didn't, got an open 3 out of it. He was upset about that one. Had another play where he thought he got fouled driving into the bucket, didn't get a call. Finally kind of snapped on one of the refs, and I don't know exactly what he said, obviously, but I'm not going to say he didn't deserve a tech by any means, because he did snap, he did yell, and I don't know what he said. So he could have easily deserved that tech. He gets that technical, they get a free throw. And then on the ensuing inbound, Celtics still had the ball. Gets an offensive foul on Jordan Poole, like pushing off against Jordan Poole, which was, after replay and even live, I kind of thought was a terrible call, and it was. Poole kind of held him to begin with, like pulled him into him, and Smart kind of put his arm out to get open, and might have grazed Poole's cheek or whatever. I don't know, but Poole acted like he just got slapped by Will Smith. It was it was good acting by Jordan Poole.
it was a Hollywood acting job. And there
Sure.
was another
So
one. There was another big moment that I recall from early on the game. It was Gary Payton had a fast break and completely tripped over himself. I mean, you could tell live, completely tripped over his own feet, and they called a foul. And not only did they call a foul, they called a shooting foul. And I was like, what is that?
yeah, yep, that one was also really bad. And at Tech, an offensive foul back to back, so you give them the free point and then give them the free possession.
Mm-hmm.
Not all Smart's fault. Obviously, we just said the offensive foul was a terrible call, but it was also another huge momentum swing. At the time, the Warriors were up 7, and they came out of it up 8 with the ball, and I believe scored that possession to make it 10. And that was another backbreaker in the series of them from late third to early fourth for the Celtics. I do want to mention Tatum real fast. I have a gripe with him just because he's too skilled to need/want the refs call every time.
Exactly.
He's a big body. He's strong. He's long. He doesn't have to search for contact. And we haven't had many random episodes yet, but if you know me at all, I'm not the biggest James Harden fan. But James Harden is still, I'll give it to him, he's crafty, but he has to an extent because he's 6'5", and he's not the quickest out there. But Tatum is 6'8", at times the quickest on the court, the strongest on the court, and there's sometimes where he's just going up with two hands extended, searching out for arms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's played enough playoff games in his career at this point. Now, this is his first finals, but it's not much different than playoffs in general. That he should know there's a certain level of physicality that is going to be allowed in these games. You're not going to get every ticky-tack call that you may get in the regular season. Because everybody's playing as good a defense as they can, so they can't call every single thing. There's some level... And that's why it's also hard. I've mentioned this too. It's also very hard to ref from regular season to postseason because it is different. You can't call everything again, and that's part of the reason why it's so difficult on refs. And something has to be addressed with that, like either change it in the regular season or don't, whatever. Anyway, but as far as Tatum goes, I just need him to go get his buckets and let the whistle play out as it is. I need him to look at the bucket every time, not look at the defenders, not look for the contact, and just do his thing.
So that fourth quarter was just a complete backbreaker for the Celtics. Turnovers, arguing with the refs, So the end of that fourth, Wiggins capped off a great night with a huge dunk. It just completely was a complete kill shot to the Celtics, and it's gonna take us to Game 6, and that leads into the question, do the Celtics have a chance? Uh-oh. We do know what time it is. The guy right there.
Barring some wild circumstance, he will be in TD Garden for Game 6, and he will be doing Game 6 type things. And he kind of previewed what he may be capable of in Game 6 with a couple big shots late tonight too. Added in with Wiggins' dunk was just sealed the deal. And once again, if you're the Warriors, you got to feel good about Curry going 0 for 9 from 3, and you're still winning by 10. And so I don't know. I originally said the home team would win every game that was left, but I would not be surprised at all if the Warriors win.
Yeah, I do think my original prediction was Warriors in 6, so it's looking pretty good, Game 6 plays going to TD, but I just, as an NBA fan, I'd love to see a Game 7, but the Celtics, man, it just doesn't feel like it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't know. They're going to have to figure things out on offense. First off, their defense has been pretty solid. If if they're going to win Game 6 and then obviously have to win Game 7, I just think they're going to need more out of Al Horford again, first off. He was scoring the ball wise, not great again tonight, and he really hasn't been since Game 1. You're going to need another Al Horford game to win you Game 6 or 7. Derek White's got to be better as the guard off the bench than he was tonight. But I don't know, it's going to be tough. And I don't know if you saw going into Game 5, the BPI for ESPN still gave the Celtics 71% chance to win the series.
What is
Still
this
just blasphemous.
BPI, bro?
I guess they don't account for home court. I don't know, but
Well,
I wonder where
look,
it sits at now.
Yeah, if you just look at our X factors from the preview episode, I mean, they've played huge roles in the series. So we had Wiggins and Draymond, two of the headliners this game, maybe the two headliners of this game.
Yep.
So, and then other side, you just mentioned Horford, and Smart has been pretty big player in all of these games. So all those guys are going to have to contribute and definitely play at their best if they want their team to win these last two, or for the Warriors win this last game, close it out.
So my prediction was Warriors in 7, but either way, we got a good one on our hands, and it's been a fun series, though. It really has. And
yeah, definitely better than the rest of the playoffs.
Sure. And the Celtics have been in this spot, though. Came back 3-2 on the Bucks. Came back 3-2 on the Heat. So
yeah, those teams aren't these Warriors.
Yeah, that's true. So Game 6 is on Thursday night, 8 p.m. again. And then we will be recording shortly after once again, and hopefully have a video up on Friday. And it could be the last NBA Finals recap.
Could be.
See. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, have a good one.